Graham Bettis. He is the Texas State Bridge Engineer. In that role, he helps to oversee the design, construction, inspection, and maintenance of the statewide inventory of 55,000 bridges. His background is primarily in structural evaluation and preservation. Graham graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 1999 and worked in the consultant arena before moving to TxDOT in 2006. So help me to welcome Graham Bettis.
It's a pleasure to be here. Really, really great to be here in person. For me, it's really great to be here in Hot Springs. I'm from Texas, but my whole family is from Hot Springs, and so this is very much like home for me. So I'm proud of this city, like the other folks from Arkansas, so I hope you get a chance to walk around. It's a beautiful place. Okay, the idea today, the Bridge Preservation Partnership, and how do we move from idea to implementation. And I'm going to give some examples, talk about some of my history here with the partnership, and just give kind of the perspective from the DOT side of things, and specifically from Texas. And my predecessor, Keith Ramsey, is here. He hired me onto this job, and he was involved in this partnership before I was. I've been around for close to a decade now, so we've been doing it for a while. Okay, I don't want to shock you, but as a transportation industry, we don't have a great, so I think everybody knows this, right? We don't have a great reputation when it comes to rapid deployment of new technology. We tend to think, and it takes us years to get around to doing something, and you know, that's just kind of the reputation outside of Elon Musk. Transportation just doesn't move very quickly. And you know, a lot of our focus is on research, and research is a good thing. And a lot of the groups around the country, a lot of the focus is on research and developing research statements and then spending a few years going through that research. And it's a very positive thing, but I think this is another area where in the transportation world, sometimes we research it and then we have an implementation study and then we want to research it again, and next thing you know, we're a decade into it. So research on top of research, maybe not so much a good thing. And I think there's a tendency sometimes for engineers to be skeptical about trying new things. We develop standards. We put a lot of work into developing those standards, and we become reliant on those standards, and they treat us well. And so maybe sometimes we become a little too reliant on the standards, and it becomes difficult to kind of move away from those and to try something else. And then maybe every once in a while we finally reach the finish line, and then we've managed to develop something that the contractors aren't actually interested in. So the photo I show there is a cautionary tale number one. I've got a few cautionary tales in this presentation. So those are the overhang panels that we spent about 6 years developing in Texas. And anybody want to guess how many times that they have been used since we get them in the standards? It's zero. It would be zero. So just I think something to keep in mind as we are looking at new technology and developing new things, make sure everybody's on board. Don't do it in a vacuum. Point is, as an industry, we don't move real quick. But I think this doesn't really apply to us in this partnership. I think that we've managed to really come together in a way that does allow for pretty rapid deployment of new technology and new ideas. And I think that's something that really kind of sets us apart from a lot of the other groups. And so a lot of what I focus on in this presentation is how we've done that, and then again, specifically how we've made that work in Texas. So the National Bridge Preservation Partnership, really finding a way to foster the communication, and that's what we're doing here. There's lots of us here. There's lots of DOTs, there's owners, there's consultants, there's suppliers, manufacturers, FHWA, lots and lots of different folks here. We really rely heavily in these meetings on technical content. There's not a whole lot of fluff, and I think that pays off. We're really getting into some nitty-gritty details on the technical side of things. There, that bullet on the, it's not just the DOTs talking to each other. It's so important that we all come together and have these conversations. And something that I show there in that photo, those of you that have been to the national meeting. So we have these regional meetings every year, and then the national meeting every 4 years. These parking lot demonstrations are really just out of the world. Just a phenomenal opportunity to learn about new things. So you can see one there in that photo. Here's another one. So these are, people are really, really engaged in these, and I know a number of you have been to them. If you haven't been to one of these, I urge you to try to make your way to a national meeting, and I'm hopeful we'll be able to do these parking lot demonstrations again, because it's just super, super cool to see this stuff, not just talked about, but you're seeing the stuff get mixed and placed, and in a lot of places you're able to get your hands dirty a little bit, and really, really cool stuff going on there. So just want to give one example example. Here's a fun acronym, HRCSA. What is that? The high ratio Co-Polymerized calcium sulfonate. What it really is it's an anti-corrosion solution that will get sucked into those hard to reach steel places that you can't get to with the traditional coating systems. So this is something that I saw in a parking lot demonstration in Orlando. We have this suspension bridge in Texas and some really, really hard to reach areas in this thing. So we learned about this product. It gets into those hard to reach places, displaces the moisture, consumes the oxygen, mitigates the corrosion. And what we were able to do in this case was use a kind of a mixture of the Thermarust and the coating system, and ended up with a good final product. And I don't think I would have ever known about this had it not been for the time we spent in that parking lot. So paid off immediately for us. Here's another cool one. Hopefully our good friend Kevin Western is in the audience somewhere. He's a regular at these conferences. I think many of you probably know him. He talks about a number of things, but in particular, he has talked about metallizing. This was another great parking lot demonstration in Orlando. So we looked for opportunities to take this back into Texas and implement. And it's really effective. It's a great tool to use, but you've got to do it smartly. You've got to do the right thing. So here we are at cautionary tale number 2. Metallizing. It's a well-established, highly effective technique. It's been used for years in a lot of places around the country. Like Illinois in particular, I think, has many, many examples of good metallizing projects. This was something new to us. Took it back to Texas. We learned some hard lessons the first time we did this on an existing bridge. And things that just seem really obvious now, and should have been obvious, caught us off guard on this first one. So important that I think when we are implementing this new technology that we engage the experts. We talk to other DOTs, we talk to the suppliers, we talk to the consultants, and really get a good set of design plans together, and that we have their involvement during implementation, because I mean, just obvious stuff. The flash rust got us on this project, and the other thing that got us was the torch cut corners, the really sharp corners in these bottom flanges, and metallizing does not play well with sharp edges. And so we ended up with a really pretty sizable change order for something that in hindsight we should have anticipated as part of the design. So last bullet there, very important to engage the outside experts to assist in design, plans, implementation, and inspection, especially if you're trying something new. Something else that we do as a partnership. We don't always get to do it, but we do get to have some pretty cool technical tours. This was the technical tour of all technical tours. I think it's probably time to start talking to West Virginia again, because we got to go see the New River Gorge Bridge, the catwalk, and this was just tremendous. So we had a consultant that had just done the design on the pretty significant rehab of this bridge, including resetting the bearings. Gave a long presentation. West Virginia DOT gave a long presentation, and then we got to load up on buses and go do the catwalk underneath the bridge. And it was just phenomenal to have the opportunity to do that and to see what they were able to accomplish. Anyway, 2017, that was 4 years ago. I think hopefully in a few years we can start begging them to go back, because that was really just an amazing opportunity. And then even 2 years ago, when we were in Baton Rouge, we had a really good presentation that David gave on the Mississippi River Bridge and the recent work they had done on that. And we didn't get to walk the bridge, but we kind of did it in the shadow of the bridge while we were eating crawfish. More things that we do. So John mentioned the working groups that we have, and there's a number of great opportunities for collaboration, not just within the partnership, but with other groups around the country. So the FHWA's Bridge Preservation Expert Task Group, there's a number of representatives in this room that are on that. The AASHTO T9 Committee on Bridge Preservation, we work very closely together on that one. David and I are both on T9, and we work closely with this group. And then the AASHTO Committee on Maintenance, the Bridge TWIG, the Bridge Technical Working Group. This is another group that we engage with on a regular basis, and there again, David and I are kind of the liaisons between that group and this one. And then just a ton of regional and national working groups that are meeting regularly, monthly in most cases, and really getting some great work done. And the one I focus on in particular there, and John's going to be speaking at length about this one later on in this session, the Innovative Technology Demonstrations Working Group that's led right now by Brian Mintz. This is great. And so if you have any interest in being part of that group, I think Brian would be glad to have you. But they talk at length about new technology, new opportunities, and just really cool stuff. But here's one that we got. So this is the West 7th Street Bridge in Fort Worth. This is one of our signature structures. It's made up of 12 arches, For whatever reason, one of those 12 arches has just been cracking almost from day one, and we've been chasing it and trying to figure out what to do about it. But you can see there, those are some pretty gnarly looking cracks. And so we're about to do a project with this integral gel waterproofing system, and this is a product that we learned just because we sat in on one of those ITD meetings. So I know a number of you are already on it. If you haven't been on it and be interested, it's one I would definitely suggest getting in on. Something else we've talked about at length: hurricanes, floods, emergency response. We have most definitely had more than our share in the southeast of severe weather. Lots of hurricanes, lots of flooding, lots of nasty, nasty stuff going on. And so there have been numerous presentations and discussions on emergency response. And really, it's not just telling the story. We talk about how, case histories really don't offer much value if there's not some takeaways from it. And so what we try to do with these emergency response presentations is really talk about what went well and what didn't go well, and try to talk to each other so there can be some lessons learned along the way. And the contacts made as part of this partnership is really what led to widespread collaboration. And I put there the Texas and Louisiana maintenance forces, I think, pretty much have each other on speed dial at this point, because we had a few years where the hurricanes couldn't miss us, and now Louisiana's had a few years where the hurricanes can't seem to miss them, and Florida, of course, really all the states in the southeast are having this issue. But lots of opportunity for collaboration and lessons learned on that one. This is a presentation that I gave. I presented on it 2 years in a row because Harvey happened in between. So I presented before Harvey, and then I changed the presentation to add everything that we learned as part of Hurricane Harvey. And really the focus there was on lessons learned and the takeaways from it. All right, let's get back to some of the technology that we've learned as part of being part of this partnership. And hydrodemolition has been a topic for years and years and years. There are several champions of hydrodemolition. They are always a sponsor at this, have a lot of involvement. So this is something that we hadn't done much of at all, and increasingly this is becoming a pretty common part of our bridge rehab project. So the example I gave here, this is a photo straight from one of my presentations that I gave a couple years ago on problematic bridge decks. And this is in Dallas. This is a direct connector connecting two interstates. And this is a pretty sorry condition bridge deck. And it's a big deal when we close the ramp down. So we had to do something quick, so we developed design and plans for rapid repair work, and hydrodemolition was a huge part of that. So we did have to close the ramp, but using the hydrodemo and a concrete overlay, we were able to do it very, very quickly. And this one ended up winning an award, not just for bridge rehab, but for any TxDOT construction project. There are gold, silver, and bronze awards, and this one actually won the gold medal for top project in Texas last year, and there's a couple of photos of it. So pretty cool stuff. Now this was a big jump. This was awesome. You'll see a little more about this project in some later slides, but this is the San Jacinto River Bridge, I-10 outside of Houston, and it got walloped by a barge. And we had to do a lot of work. We had to rebuild a couple of columns. We had to repair a couple of columns. And this was actually the contractor's idea. He rigged up this underwater hydrodemolition thing to go underwater and take the concrete off outside the cage of this column. And it was just awesome to see it. Really amazing to see it at work, and really helped us out on this project to get in and out of there quickly. Heard a little bit earlier about the latex modified concrete overlay and how widely it's been used in Arkansas, and there's a number of other states that have used a lot of the LMC, and this is another one where we've got Pat Martins and Ed Liberati here are active participants in this partnership. They talk a lot about the hydrodemolition and the latex modified concrete. So I heard a lot about latex modified concrete, decided I wanted to go home and implement it. This is cautionary tale number 3. We know LMC is a material that has been used successfully around the country, but here is not a recipe for success on a project. You got an experienced designer, but no experience with LMC, and I don't want to embarrass anybody in the room, but that engineer is in the room. It's me. We had a contractor that knew latex modified concrete, but they sent a crew not familiar with it to the job. We had inspectors that were experienced in bridge construction, but not bridge rehab. None of those things work together to have a successful project. Resulted in really 2 pretty disastrous projects in Waco, one of them on the interstate. So this is a big black eye, right? And it's hard to recover from that black eye on new technology. So be cautious. And again, seek guidance from experts when you're implementing new technology. The problem wasn't with the LMC, the problem was with me and the contractor and the inspectors on this one. But it's tough, right? So, all of a sudden we've got 2 bad projects, and it's hard to recover from that. But, better news. Here's a recent project in Dallas. So we're trying hydrodemolition, and LMC again. And we're having much better results. This is a deteriorated bridge deck in Dallas, so really pretty straightforward. We're going to mill it, hydrodemo, clean up, LMC. You can see pretty quickly we were able to get that sucker closed on the 11th of January and reopened on the 29th. And really the moral of the story here, don't give up on good technology because of a couple of hiccups. Tried it, it didn't work, but we went at it again, and now it's working successfully. This is technology, again, that we knew was good. Here's another cool one, Polyester Polymer Concrete Overlay. I put 2018 there. I think it was 2018. So it was the North Carolina presentation. Tim gave the perspective from the DOT, and Quick Bond gave the supplier's perspective on it. And really great presentation on it. And this is becoming a mainstay in Texas now. The Ppc Concrete Overlay, we've had a lot of success with it already, and it's becoming a lot more commonplace. We learned about it from presentations given here. UHPC, this is something talked about not only with our partnership, but in lots and lots of different meetings. Been on our radar for years, been talking about this forever, right? Excellent work being done by FHWA. A number of you have probably been in Dr. Graybell's workshops. Universities looking at it, lots of other people looking at it. And so we thought about it, and we thought about it, and we even did some research on it, and then we thought about it some more. We specified it a couple times in Texas, and contractors talked us out of it because they said, it's not available, can't do it here. So we thought about it some more and didn't specify it. And then we had a staff engineer from our Houston District Bridge Office sit in on one of the FHWA's workshops. And he went home and kind of unbeknownst to us at headquarters in Austin, he just did it. This staff engineer just said, this is the right application for this. So we had a pretty severely corroded steel bridge girder, pretty nasty problems, bearing problems, a lot of corrosion, a lot of section loss. This was an emergency closure of an interstate bridge in Houston. And he said, I'm going to encase that sucker because he heard the FHWA talking about that as an option. And really, I was so impressed that he just did it, and he was careful about it. He didn't just go willy-nilly throw this thing in a set of plans. He talked to a lot of people, and he put together a great set of plans. Maybe a few more studs and other things than we would have put in. I think at the end of the day, it was a really successful repair. And, you look at this, the encasement not only restored the capacity of the corroded beam end, but one of the other things we needed to do was to be able to lift it up to reset those bearings, and the UHPC allowed us to do that too. Our second application of UHPC, we hear it's not available, right? In Dallas, we heard it's not available. That arrow is pointing to middle of nowhere. I mean, you want remote, that is a remote part of this country. It is miles from anything. If we can do it here, we can really do it anywhere, because that is as remote as it gets. And this was a ABC project. This is a pretty remote bridge, and so we had to do it quickly or else we'd be shutting people off. So we set some girders side by side, ABC fashion, and then had UHPC for the closure pour. And this was UHPC Solutions that helped us out. They've got a booth here set up, so go talk to them. They helped us out big time on this one. It was great. So the point is, don't overthink it like we did with UHPC. At some point, we've got to be willing to pull the trigger. And our engineer in Houston District really made a bold move, and it paid off on that ship channel bridge. And being willing to stick to it if you feel technology is worth implementing. Don't let people talk you out of it for too long. Contractors a lot of times are resistant to try something new, but if we believe in something, we really just need to find a way to jam it into some plans. Already talked about, the idea that it's not available. It turned out really not to be the case. So I do think it's important to listen to contractor feedback. We've got to have them engaged, but a lot of times they're resistant to try new things just like we are. So don't let them talk you out of good technology. Here's another one, titanium strengthening. Who here is interested in using titanium to strengthen their bridges? All right, there's a couple of hands up. It sounds really far-fetched, right? The first time I heard this, I was like, you gotta be kidding. Titanium, like, we're not gonna use titanium. But this was at a T9 bridge preservation meeting in Portland, Oregon, and man, immediately caught our interest. And we followed that up with a presentation just a couple months later in Baton Rouge on the titanium strengthening. And if you haven't seen these presentations, I really urge you to get out there and look into this, because this is legit stuff. Really, I started asking our engineers to keep an eye out for opportunities to use it. And something else cool, if you've worked with it before, you can bend the titanium when it turns blue. It's hot enough to bend when it turns blue. So just kind of a neat little tidbit there. Anyway, so what happens? A barge smacks into our bridge. This is during Imelda in Houston. 9 barges got loose. The first 7 of them made it under the bridge. Number 8 here smacked our columns pretty hard. And you can see from that big chunk of steel there, this is not the first time a barge has hit this particular bent. So this is some severe damage, right? So that exterior column got completely taken out, severe damage to that first interior column. And really the arrow, what I'm trying to show is you can see what happened to the cap. That it really deflected significantly downward. So what do? We do titanium strengthening. I told them, so I had been asking my guys to find a project, and when they said, all right, I-10 San Jacinto River, I was like, it's not really what I had in mind. Like typically, maybe not something quite so high profile for the first shot at something, but we did it. This is just a few miles outside of downtown Houston, and it really worked great. The installation itself is really straightforward. It's not difficult to do, highly, highly effective. And again, this is technology I don't think I would have ever heard of were it not for the partnership in this group and the work they're doing at T9. And the supplier of the titanium is here. So, seek her out, talk to her. She's been very, very helpful in this. And, here's the installation. Really pretty easy. Saw cut your groove in, use some high strength epoxy, put your titanium bars in. And it worked great. We had some pretty major strain gauges on this thing, and when we took the shoring out, it didn't budge at all. So the titanium really works well. So pretty cool stuff. And it was kind of fun on this project. I learned about it at T9, and then I just hosted them for a meeting a few weeks ago, and we were able to go out and take a look at it at the bridge. This is something that a lot of the states have been doing for a while, something that we haven't been doing in Texas for long, but this is yet another one that we learned about as part of this partnership. The poly jackets with cathodic protection system, there's a couple of suppliers of these things. Really, really, really effective. I think Louisiana has been using them for years and years, Pontchartrain Bridge and other locations, and they're starting to really catch on in Texas. So we've got a lot of aging concrete piling and columns out there in some pretty nasty environments, a lot of salty, briny water, and it's eating up our concrete. So these partnerships been several presentations, and there's always vendor booths covering this. So go take a look at it. It's good stuff. And I mentioned there that these jackets with the galvanic cathodic protection used in some states for years and years. Not in Texas. We were able to visit with the DOTs. We were able to visit with the suppliers. This is something that we were able to use. So just because we weren't the first, it was still new to us. So why is this collaboration so successful? I think the presentations and discussions during these meetings, we're not just commercials. We're not just having vendors come up and hawk their wares. We're really having honest conversations about the technical details of what's going to make something work. And we have very heavy reliance on the suppliers, the manufacturers, the consultants, all the experts in this group. But we're really not just looking for opportunities for them to come up and give a commercial presentation. We're having really technical, nitty-gritty, detail type talks. And we really talk about the problems that we've experienced as much as we talk about the successes. And I think it's really important to have that collective willingness to talk about both about our achievements and the failures. And I think it's one of the things that makes TSP2 bridge preservation so successful. There's a lot of discussions about lessons learned in these meetings. So the open and honest dialogue there, I think it really leads to the opportunities for rapid and successful implementation of new innovations. So the photo I have there, so may not look familiar, but this was straight from a photo that I gave a couple of years ago, and I gave it as an example of a failure in our bridge inspection process. This was something that just shouldn't happen, but this was actually one of the beam ends that ended up being encased by UHPC. So we were aware of the problem, but it had not yet been prepared when I presented this in Louisiana. And I think really, again, just that willingness to get out there and talk about, we got to air some dirty laundry. And I think that there's often more to learn from these failures than from the successes, and we're willing to do that here. So I think this is my last slide coming up. Closing thoughts. If you haven't already, please do embrace this partnership. I'm so grateful to have spent nearly a decade as part of it. There are a number of people in this room that I count as very close friends. John in particular has been terrific at helping to organize these conferences. I was not aware that you had officially called it, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have worked with you, John, and the work that Darlene and Zach and the other folks from the from ASHTO, Michigan State do is really just phenomenal. But outside of that, I know a bunch of people because of my involvement with this partnership. So beyond just being a member, I really hope that you can embrace it and be a part of it. Really pay attention to the presentations, take these ideas home, talk and get to know each other. There's a lot of expertise in this room, a lot of experience in this room, so take advantage of that. And get to know the vendors, please. Visit their booths. And, you know, we should do that anyway. They put a lot of work into this. It cost them a lot of money. They put a lot of work into coming here, setting up these booths. So I think just in that regard, we owe it to them. But beyond that, do it for your own benefit, because these guys are not just salespeople. They really know their products, and they're going to be able to talk to you and teach you. And then when you do take it home, it's important that you know them so that you can engage them. I talked to you about you know, those hard lessons learned. There's no reason that I shouldn't have been able to put together a successful set of design plans for LMC. And there's no reason that we shouldn't have known not to, you know, grind out those flame cut edges on the girders when we metallized them. These are lost opportunities, but, you know, we've learned from that. And so now we're very careful about engaging the experts and try not to do that again. Deliberate in the ways you try new ideas, but don't get so mired down in the details that you fail to get around to implementation. I talked about the UHPC. We probably spent a few more years thinking about that than we really needed to before we implemented it. And now we did it once, we've done it twice, and now we've got it in a number of plans. So it can take a while to get there. You should be deliberate and careful, but don't get so mired down into it that you never get around to it. So my last thing I'll do is TSP2. Who knows what that stands for? I'm not asking John. I know John knows. Anybody? It's hard, right? So, all right, no cheating.
Technical Special Project.
So it's kind of an unfortunate acronym. I'm not sure how or why this happened, but it is the Transportation System Preservation TSP1 Technical Services Program TSP2. I don't know, but. But whatever you think of the name, I think it's a really effective, highly successful program. So I'm really proud to be a part of it. It's great to be here. I really feel fortunate, and we've gained a lot in the state of Texas in being part of this. And you know, back to Keith Ramsey. Keith was involved in this, I think, at the origin of the organization. So Texas has always been involved. A number of states have. So that's all I've got. Any questions? Okay, I'll be around if y'all want to talk.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.